So a couple months ago, one of my customers gave me a call, Chrissy P, and he said, "Hey man, I'm cleaning out my shop, and I'm hauling a whole trailer of stuff to the trash dump. Do you want it?" And I said, "Sure, I love the junk." So one of the units I got from him was this Homelight 4400 watt generator with an 8 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine. So we're going to see just how much it's going to take to get this old girl back up and running proper. So I've already checked and made sure that it has oil in it. Now we're going to check and see if it has compression and ignition. The easiest way to do that, take this air box cover off and give it a spray. We're going to spray a little starting fluid in there, and if it tries to start, runs and dies, then we know we've got ignition and we know we've got compression. Oh, she's gonna be a runner. Now, I checked the fuel tank and it is empty, but before we put any fuel in it, I am gonna pull this carburetor just to see how bad it is in there. All right, let's get this snatched off. Alright, next we're going to remove this fuel line. Just back these studs out. Save this gasket here. Work this linkage off and remove our spring. Let's get this over to the bench and take a look at it. Alright, let's see if we can get this gasket off without destroying it. Yummy. Smells good too. Yeah, that's an issue. And before you go spraying this thing with carburetor cleaner, if you're going to reuse this O-ring, it's a good idea to take it off if you can, because that carburetor cleaner will make it swell up and you won't be able to use it anymore. So let's get this picked off and we'll get all this cleaned up. Okay, so this carburetor has a removable pilot circuit plug here, so we're gonna take this screw here out. We're also going to pull the main jet out. These screwdrivers here work great for the Briggs & Strattons. You can see on the tip, it'll focus. It's a square, it's squared off so it won't round off your jets. So it looks like somebody was in here before me, because the slot that your screwdriver is supposed to fit in is all mangled up. So we're going to try to clean it as best we can without removing the main jet. So ideally you would want to remove this main jet, but this one is so mangled that I can't get it out without destroying it, and I don't have one to replace it with. There's an emulsion tube that runs on the other side of the main jet that has little holes all in it, and you want to make sure all those are clean. But in this case, I can't get it out without messing this one up, and I don't have one to put back in its place. So we're going to try it like it is. And here's a little trick for cleaning your seat. Spray you some card spray in there. Take you a drill and a Q-tip. And do that till you get it clean. Now you want to make sure that you didn't leave any cotton fibers in there, so spray it out and blow it out with some air. For the bolt that goes through the bowl like this, the gasket I took off doesn't look all that great. So I'm going to see if I can find one to replace it with. I was able to find one. This should work just fine. I'll see if I can find the correct one, and I'll leave a link in the description. So all my passages are blown out. Everything's nice and clean. Seat's clean. Main jet is as clean as I can get it without taking it out. So let's reassemble it. We're going to check our float level. You want the float to be parallel with the housing here. And this one looks good. Do your final tightening with the wrench. That should be good. So before I bolt this carburetor back on, we're just going to pressure check it right quick. This will save you some trouble from going, putting it on, taking it back off, putting it on, taking it back off. So you want to turn it upside down so the seat is sealing. We're going to pump it up to about 5 pounds. It looks like we are good. If you don't have a pressure tester, you can just take a piece of fuel line, stick it on here, turn it upside down, and blow in it with your mouth. You should not be able to blow air through this inlet if the needle and seat are sealing properly. This fuel line is very hard, so we're gonna pull it off and replace it. Sometimes if you have a fuel line that's very hard, you can take a razor blade and just cut it. Especially if you're on a plastic nipple and you're scared you're gonna break it off, you can just make a cut in one side, and usually that'll help you work it off easily. We have our new piece of fuel line. Let's get it up in there. Put our linkage back on. And our spring. Don't forget your gasket. Front gasket. Looks good. Slip the fuel line back on. Be sure when you're sliding this back on that you fit your breather tube back into your hole here. Throw our nuts back on. So before I put any fuel in it, I noticed this grommet that goes in the bottom of the tank looks very hard. And I'm guessing, I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera, but it's very wet under this tank. So I'm thinking the reason this is out of fuel is that over time this grommet hardened and every bit of the fuel leaked out. So let's get this swapped out. That is very hard. It doesn't even want to come out now. Oh, Lord, mercy. Let me go grab one of these. So I have my new grommet, sprayed a little bit of oil on it. Wipe that off. Let's see if I can find these grommets, and I'll leave a link in the description. And there we have that. Before I put any fuel in it, I am going to pull this fuel line back off and put some fuel in the tank to make sure there's no crud in this fuel line system. Dump a little fuel in it and see what happens. Being that this generator does have a fuel pump on it, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure in the fuel tank to push some fuel through. Alright, let's shut it off. That should be flushed. Stick our fuel line back on. Now let's set it back on the floor and see what it'll do. Let's get the air cleaner back on it and see if this bad boy will fire up. It may take several pulls to prime the fuel pump. This generator has a fuel pump on it, so you have to get the fuel pumped into the carburetor. Well, that took off. The governor arm was stuck. Let's try it again. And that's all there is to it. Hey, I hope you find this information useful. If you would, please subscribe, like, and share. Till next time.